TG Geeks, episode 150, January 1st, 2018. Slicers of History. Hello and welcome to episode number 150 of the Webcast from TGGeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre, you name it, we talk about it. I am Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona. But we're actually on our way back.
We're on our way back.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from Interstate 10.
Yes.
As we're driving back. Actually, no, not at this moment. No. At this very moment, we're probably in our hotel room. When this episode publishes?
No. Well, yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it publishes, we're not awake yet.
Yeah, we're not awake
yet. We're still in our
yeah.
hotel room.
Yeah.
In Anaheim, California. But, oh, God, I forgot what I was going to say.
Where are we?
Oh, yeah, I know what I was going to say. It's like amazing how far we have come in the 150 episodes. It doesn't feel like 150.
I know. I mean, my God, what was episode 1 was 6 minutes?
About 6 minutes
12
long.
minutes?
Yeah, it was terribly short.
Episode 2 was 12 minutes?
Maybe anywhere from 12 to 15.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been getting progressively longer since, thank God.
Yeah, and we've graduated from doing just news items and
just
stuff.
News bits.
I mean, really, we have, and just this is our little discussion on episode 150.
Yeah.
But we have come a long way. We've discovered our niche of supporting independent creators and, doing interviews. And our interview style is really kind of our signature,
Yeah, that's changed. It's gone through its own evolution, much to my pleasure, because as I said with the interview that we did a couple of weeks ago with Maurice Himes, he went on to say that it wasn't an interview for him, it was fun.
Yeah, and Terry said the same thing. Terry
Right.
Smith. She's only done like one other interview, or maybe this was her first, and she felt very comfortable with us. So we've really come a long way, and we couldn't have done it without you, our listeners. We thank you very much for listening to us and putting up with us and our craziness and all of that stuff. And we're going to talk about the history of podcast with Mr. Michael R. Mennenga here.
Yeah.
So
He gave birth to a lot of podcasts, including this one.
Yep. So we're going to launch right into it. And on this New Year's Day episode of 2018, we have a really special guest for you. We have the Godfather of podcasting, Mr. Michael R. Mennenga. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hey guys, how's it going?
I don't know. I understand why we're calling him that, but at the same time, God, that makes him sound like a fossil.
Well, not really.
And he's younger than us.
I am. I mean, realistically, I've gone through all this from the very beginning. Well, before the beginnings of podcasting to now. So, yeah, I've earned my T-shirt.
Yeah, and it says the Godfather. The Podfather.
Well,
you're
Podfather.
the Podfather.
I don't know. I mean, that's I know there's I can't remember who it was that gave me that. Who gave me that moniker, but I mean, it's flattering and so forth. But I mean, there are so many people in the early beginnings of this industry, if you want to call it an industry. I guess it's getting there. That have done so much. I don't know. I'm honored to have the title, but it's definitely not one that I gravitate toward.
Yeah, well, we'll call you the Podfather then.
Yeah, something like that.
The father of the pods.
I think we did a whole
body
bit
snatcher
on that at one time. I'm pretty sure we did a Podfather episode once, or somebody sent one in. I don't know. There's so many shows, so many hours of.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I think Winging It was close to 500 episodes before it
Woof.
finally imploded, and I know Slice was way over 500. Dragon Page was at 500.
Wow.
Podholes made 8.
Who did?
Podholes.
Oh,
Potholes. I don't know that one.
Yeah, well, not me. There's a very, very small and illustrious fan base for that.
wow. That's a lot of episodes. Well, considering that Slice, when we were involved, we were doing, 5 episodes a week.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, that was it.
And
We were trying to do a weekly show, so
Right,
and we were
and-
hammering them all out in one day, which
know,
was
it's
just
like, oh my God.
insane.
And
well,
we came in
we
well
did
in after
interviews
episode
throughout the
300.
week.
Yeah.
What's that?
And we came in well in after episode 300.
Oh yeah, way after.
Yeah.
I think it was probably closer to 400 by the time when you guys came in.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't recall. I don't remember, but that was interesting.
Yeah.
So an interesting time, and really, you kind of are the godfather of this podcast in essence. You kind of became our de facto,
He birthed us.
he birthed us.
Well, yeah, and that was kind of the norm throughout the history and the evolution of the show. It was just basically, do you want to be on the show? Come on in and talk.
Oh
and
God!
then
I
they
was telling
never
somebody about that
left.
last night. Yeah, that's how it happened with me.
Yeah.
Pretty
Come
much
back-
how everybody came.
Come
into
back
it.
anytime you want. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I don't want to be rude, so I'll wait a month. And then I came back, and I said, come back. You don't have to email Ben, just show up. Oh, okay.
Right.
And then next thing
Yeah,
I know,
the open door policy was pretty awesome, and it's definitely one of the things that I'm surprised that I didn't have more problems with that than I did. I mean, it really was. You just walked up to the door and wandered in. I mean, people showed up all week long. It was kind of weird.
Who are you again?
Exactly.
So tell us what was the incentive, and you have had a background in radio to begin with, and then what made you decide to do this podcasting thing, or the precursor to podcasting?
Well, that's it. It's definitely the precursor, because the true lineage of it is that it was 2002, and I had met and had kind of become friends with a lady that ran a used bookstore, and I had just published one of my books. I can't remember which one it was, if it was Zach and the Valley of the Dragons, or if it was oh gosh, I think it was Zach. I think Zach and the Valley of the Dragons was just my YA book that I had just published, and I was looking for publicity. I was trying to get that out there and promote it. And I had been talking with Debbie, and she started talking about putting together an internet radio station. And that was the big thing back then. Remember Live 365
Right.
and
oh yeah,
the other ilks that were out there. That was the whole thing. That was what happened before podcasting was even a thing. It was even thought about.
Right.
And she said, well, you were in broadcasting, and I was never behind the board or behind the microphone, but I was an engineer. I did tower work and service transmitters and radio stations, and I built studios. I mean, that's what mine was, the technical end. That was what I did for, I think, 12 years leading up to that. And she said, well, you got equipment. And I'd been in bands and, done music and DJ and all that stuff. So I have the entertainment background. I've been there. But she said, well, I need shows. So can you do a show? Why don't you talk about books, since you just published your book and you want to promote your book? And it's like, okay, that sounds good. Sounds like a way to, to sell a couple books. So I drug out an old realistic 4-channel mixer that I had stashed away from my band days, pulled out an old SM58 microphone, plugged that in. I still had some mini disc the old Sony mini disc. Remember that?
Oh, yes.
From when I was doing recording and I was recording my music, and I pulled that out and plugged it all together, and basically I had a little studio, and I started recording onto, what was I recording? Oh my God, I was recording onto cassette tape.
Oh my gosh.
Originally.
Wow.
Yeah, I was recording onto cassette tape, and then I would input that into the computer through an old, oh gosh, what the hell did they call those things? They were just out. They were the first original digital computer interfaces that were for video and audio, for basically dubbing your VHS tapes to DVD.
Yeah.
Remember those things? I can't remember what the name of it was, but I used that interface. And it wasn't until later that I figured out, hey, I can eliminate the cassette step just by putting it onto the computer.
Right.
And I went back to my broadcasting roots and got, it's Adobe Audition is what they're calling it now, but back in the day they used to call it Cool Edit.
Yeah, I have
and
a
that
copy
was
of that.
our digital platform for doing on-air recordings and for spots in the radio stations. And I thought, well, that should work for this. And I cobbled it together and made it work and got my first digital platform put together, which was pretty cool. I should back up. The reason that I did it on cassette tape originally is because that I had to transport it to Debbie so that she could input it into her system, and that's how she wanted the format.
Yeah, that's right.
Not that I went there. It's not that I went there because I wanted to go there. It's that I went there because that's the format that she needed.
But also, I don't think you could really, you couldn't email audio files like that. I mean, at that time, I don't know.
They were huge.
Right.
The files were still gigantic at that time because the compression hadn't got there yet.
Right.
MP3 changed that and allowed us to compress to some extent. But even then, if you're doing a 30-minute show in MP3 back in those days, it was still, a good 1, 2, 3 gig file.
Wow.
Or at least a 1 gig file, and in high quality radio level broadcasting. But anyway, that's how I started. It was basically I started doing that show for her, and I'd done a few episodes and realized that I can't just sit here and talk for 30 minutes with absolutely nothing else going on.
Right.
So I, by happenstance, had a telephone interface system already. I had it from a radio station build that we had upgraded to a newer version. So I had an old, sorry, this has been so many years ago, I can't remember the names of stuff, but I plugged that in and I was able to actually start doing interviews.
Wow.
And this is before any of the technology existed in order to capture live interviews over the internet. That was unheard of at the time.
Right.
Because this is 2002. Good grief!
Wow.
We just Windows 2000 had just come out and it was being developed into the next incarnation. XP didn't even exist yet.
Right.
So it's crazy how early how much the technology in all of this has evolved in just from that time.
And 2002.
So anyway,
we're only talking 15 years ago, but you're right. The technology to be able to do this kind of thing has just, it's been more than just leaps and bounds. It's astonishing to think about how far we've come in just that short period of time.
It's the bandwidth. It's the bandwidth that's changed it all, and the processing power.
Right.
Because back then, a majority of people were still on dial-up or at least some low level of ISDN.
Right.
It's so that was a very small pipe to push a lot of data through.
No kidding.
And when you're trying to do these digital files.
Let me
anyway,
send you
I
this
started doing that show.
MP3 and it'll take 4 days to get.
Yeah, exactly. but I was doing that show for her, and that's actually when I met Evo, because I had invited him in to come in to do a show with me, so I had somebody else in the studio to talk with.
That's Evo Terra,
and
right?
That's Evo Terra, yes. And he came in because I had Boris and Julie Bell on. Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell. I was interviewing them. I caught that interview. And I said, hey, why don't you come in and do this interview and a show with me? And he was a fan of their art too. So he came in. It went fairly well. I mean, we had good chemistry on air, and and we got done with that. And then I did another show and asked him if he was interested in coming back again, and he came back again and basically never left. So that's how that happened. But in that time, we were starting to formulate what the show was going to be. It was the original Dragon Page. That's what it was called, was the Dragon Page from the beginning, from the onset. The bed music was bed music that I had created, I had written, and we started building a show that actually had some real teeth to it. We were starting to get some feedback. We were starting to get some exposure. People were starting to comment to us about how good it was. With me being in the radio industry to begin with, I started coming up with the idea maybe I should shop this around. So I started shopping it around to some of my old stations. One of them picked it up. It was in the middle of freaking Kansas or somewhere in Nebraska. I can't remember who it was, but they picked up the show. And we were all of a sudden syndicated. We were not only sending shows out over the radio, through the internet radio, but we were also on terrestrial radio. And from there, I started pushing and reaching out to more. And I think at the height, we had 35 to 40 radio stations across the country.
Wow.
From California, I think as far east as Chicago. I think that's as far as we got. I don't think we got any further than that.
That's not bad.
But it was we built our format clock. We had a really solid schedule. We had a tight 30 minutes to 1 hour that we could break into two 30 minutes shows if we needed, depending whether they needed a 30-minute show or a 60-minute show. And each week we would do the shows, and I would break them up into two 30-minute segments that could seamlessly work as a 60 with commercial breaks and padding. And then I would burn those to CDs, stick them in the mail, and send them to these radio stations every single week.
My Lord.
So I was sending out about 30 burned DVDs a week.
Wow.
This is before podcasting existed.
Wow.
So that's the thing that people don't, I think that people miss, is that we were a completely developed and well-established show before podcasting even existed.
Wow.
So as soon as podcasting came around, because by the time podcasting came around, we were also streaming. I had finally figured out a place to actually put the files so most of those stations could come and get them, so I didn't have to burn them CDs. That was a big help. In this time also, I had landed XM Sirius Radio. That was our big get. We got time on the satellite radio, and with putting our shows up on satellite radio, that was probably the greatest thing that happened to us, hands down, because it gave us legitimacy to get the big interviews. And I mean, we have had all the big interviews.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody you can imagine we've had on. I mean, I did Ray Bradbury before he was gone. We had, oh my God, the list is insane.
Right.
Octavia Butler, we did probably one of the last interviews she ever did before she passed away. all the Star Trek people, you name it. We've had them on the show,
Right.
Over the years. But that was the thing, is when podcasting came along, it was just basically throwing the enclosure tags around the streaming that we were already doing, and we were podcasting. It's the reason that we're one of the first dozen podcasts ever in existence,
Right.
is because we were ready to go the second the technology came available.
That's amazing.
But yeah, and then from there, it's just all exploded, and it has evolved so much.
So
over the years.
You did Dragon Page, and then did you start winging it while Dragon Page was going on, or?
We were doing Dragon Page, and we decided we were going to have fun. So we did a Dragon Page with drinking one night, and we had a whole bunch of people come over, and basically got drunk.
That's a recipe for disaster.
And it's a recipe for genius and disaster at the same time. Yeah. So that kind of what started Dragon Page. It was we didn't really call it winging it at the time. I think we called it Dragon Page Extreme at first.
I see.
Because it was just basically after hours Dragon Page. And then along around this time, I had been trying to get our local station to pick us up, and she wouldn't take our show. But she finally did come back and say, look, what we will let you do, come in and try out. You can do an hour program live on our station. And it's like, wow. And that was such a tremendous divergence from what we were doing. Because, when you're sitting in front of your mixer and you have your editing tools in front of you, and maybe you're doing an interview like this onto your equipment, that's one thing. But when you're live in a studio to a live audience, hitting cues on a live, that's a whole different ball game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up on KFYI, which is probably one of the most conservative.
Oh God, yeah.
in Arizona.
And you brought a little more levity to KFYI.
Doing the most liberal show that has ever seen airtime on that station.
And how long did you last there?
2.5 years.
Wow.
We made it on that station.
That is
and
shocking.
We were the reason that we got thrown out was because our numbers were so high that we actually outdid Matt Drudge, and Matt Drudge had us thrown off the station.
Wow.
But there was also some other conflicts that were going on ahead of that. The problem is that we had our own audience. So what radio stations don't like is they don't like jumps. They want it all nice and even.
Right.
So basically what was happening was that at the end of the program that preceded us, all the audience was disappearing. We replaced it with an entirely new and bigger audience, and then at the end of us, the first 10-15 minutes of Drudge was tanking because all of our audience wasn't sticking around to listen to Drudge.
Wow.
That's the reason. and it makes sense, but at the same time, it also shows you the power of having real entertainment, if I can say that with some humility.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think
like an arrogant ass about it.
I think
but
something
the
very
reality
genuine
is that we were actually giving people what they wanted for content and programming, and it was pretty amazing. It was an amazing time, and I would never trade any of it for anything.
Right. And then you continued winging it in the studio, in your home studio.
Yeah.
And then
I was doing 9 shows actually a week.
My.
It was because it was Dragon Page, the Dragon Page voicemail show, the Winging It voicemail show. I was also doing B5, the Babylon podcast. I was doing Ingredients for Life. I was doing, oh gosh, what am I missing? I'm missing shows here. There's just too damn many of them. Carology. Carology. Okay, I'm missing 3. What am I missing? What am I missing? I'm missing 3 shows. Oh, God, I can't believe I'm missing 3 shows.
Your memory did a core dump. It didn't want to remember any of this.
Evidently. I just took a core dump on... Oh, Slice, for crying out
Duh!
loud. Slice of Sci-Fi. Wow. Slice of Sci-Fi voicemail show, and then the Slice of Sci-Fi extra show. So, yeah, that's 9 shows in 9 shows a week is what I was kicking out.
And then
at one point.
And then everything kind of dropped except for the Slice shows.
Winging It finally died, which it had to, because, I mean, that was just a recipe for alcoholism. It was a frat party every single week. I mean, it truly was. It was just craziness and booze and alcohol. And it got to the point where we'd do a Winging It episode and nobody would leave. I mean, it truly was a party because everybody coming in, this was my house. I was working, but everybody else came in to basically have fun and party, which made for a fantastic show. And it made for a great atmosphere for capturing what Winging It was. But nobody left. I mean, it'd be like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. People are, still hanging around wanting to watch movies and drink. And it's like, oh my God, it was awful. It got awful. There was some genius that came out of that whole era, though. I mean, some of the greatest bits that we ever did, the tequila song, the freaking Frogger, Joust.
Oh God, don't remind me.
All those things. That's where, the whole Fox Leader thing. Remember the Poetry Slam?
Yes, I do remember these things because I got
all these things.
I remember Keith gave me an iPod, and this was this was around 2004, 2005, and he gives me an iPod, and a friend of mine, really close friend of ours, said, "Oh, you got to check this thing out. It's called Podcasts." And so, where can I find those? I said, well, you just go to iTunes and you just go to there's a section called Podcasts and put in whatever search you're looking for and go to town. You download it, whatever their production schedule is. A new episode, will appear when you subscribe. You just download it to your device and listen to it at your heart's content. And I will always, for the love of God, I will always remember the very first episode I ever heard was talking about how Joust was going to be made into a movie.
Joust the movie.
Joust the movie. And then all sorts of really weird bits came out of that. And I remember a Joust versus Frogger kind of bit. I mean, and here I'm listening to with my headphones at work, and I'm just howling with laughter because this
What's
stuff.
What's shocking to me is I still hear some of those bits on the regular radio.
Oh my God!
Because
really?
remember, we were sending these out. This got syndicated out nationally for a long time, and those bits went out. Right. And there's no license on those. Wow. So I still hear the frickin' tequila song from time to time. I hear the frickin' the Frogger one every now and then. I hear stuff that we did in our studio playing on stations all over the place, and it just blows me away.
No kidding. I had no idea.
This stuff's still living out there in the ether.
Yeah, amazing.
So then
we created in a drunken stupor, basically.
Okay. And then Slice became kind of the only show. Well, I guess there was Farpoint.
No, Cover to Cover was going all the way to the end. Mike Stackpole and myself basically kept Dragon Page going for a long time, and we had a lot of really dedicated and loyal fans to that show because we were basically just pulling on and talking authors. We talked to pretty much every author on the planet, I think, and it was all about basically, getting an insight to the people who are doing it as a career and living the life as an author, and those who are struggling to get there. Tips, tricks, ideas, thoughts, industry, how the industry changed, and the industry changed dramatically in this time. Remember, because this was the introduction of the iPad and the iReaders, and Audible started coming into play. In fact, I think we ran Audible ads for a long time, because we were selling advertising to try and keep the lights on.
Yeah, and
keep the show going.
Now it's changing again with the self-publishing that people are doing. Versus, so we talk to a lot of authors as well, so it's amazing.
But the one thing I do want to say, and I've got to get out there, is that as much as everybody thinks podcasting has changed, it's still the same in a lot of ways, because most of the conversations that I see and I hear and I read about are the same conversations that we had the first year we started podcasting. Oh, how are we going to make this industry so much bigger? How are we going to monetize it? Should it be a business? Should it be just for fun? Should you edit your podcast? Should you not edit your podcast? Should it be organic? Should it be produced? Every conversation it's never changed. Right. It's still the same conversation. And I'm not sure it's going to change.
Probably not. Not like that.
We've given up on the monetization. We've made $10 in 3.5 years. So
we decided we're keeping our day jobs.
$12, because the $2 of that is Amazon has not paid us because it's not enough to pay us.
Actually, I think I still had $50 coming from Amazon, and I think they finally just rolled it. they nuked it. I never did get that last payment from them, the last royalty from them.
Amazing.
But really, XM change helped tremendously for us, because that actually drove our ability for advertising. Like I said, that's the greatest thing that ever happened to us, because that gave us legitimacy over everybody else that was out there at the time. Right. Almost, not everybody. There are definitely those out there that made good bank because they were established. But our XM gave us a lot, because that's what we could take to advertisers, and that's what they were willing to pay us on.
Right.
And if it wouldn't have been for that, I'm not sure we'd have been begging for donations until the very end.
Right. So there was we came in towards the end of the Slice days, and so it was a fascinating time. I mean, I learned a lot. I never would have done this if I hadn't been involved in Slice.
Oh, agreed. First listening to Slice is what got me even remotely interested in podcasting. And then a friend of mine who was running a Doctor Who podcast said, I want to start this thing up. Would you like to be a part of it? And I would love to be a part of this because it was a great opportunity to talk about the things that I was passionate about, and then which then eventually pointed me towards Slice, and my life has never been the same since.
That's right. I remember you talking about the Doctor Who thing. I think that's what got you started on it, wasn't it?
Pretty much, because I showed up 1 year.
You came in to learn, if I remember.
I did.
Right. You wanted to see how it all worked.
Well, I initially came in, and I'm not. I can say this without any shame. I know that there was the whole Farpoint Media LLC, and there were all these podcasts that were sort of attached to it, and there was a lot of cross promotion that was going on that I could, because I remember hearing bumpers on Slice that would talk about other shows. So I thought, if I can get Fusion Patrol somehow attached to that, this would be great. That's the only reason I showed up, and I will say that the visit that discussion did not go well. So I quickly abandoned it. And then
I think you came in right about the time that we realized that the whole Farpoint thing was not going to fly. I totally I forgot about that.
Well, I was talking to Brian Brown about that, and he said, he kind of said something along the lines of, you're going to have to pay. I went, okay. So I left it alone at that point. And then it was about a year later that I finally, I don't know, I think Keith was on a business trip, and I had nothing going on. And I was listening to, because I had this huge download backlog of episodes, and I was listening to an episode of Slice, and I think it might have been the week before, and there was some conversation on a subject that I thought was interesting. I thought, I think I might want to go back up. And I remember I emailed you. And I said, I don't know if you remember me, blah, 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 blah. I came up about a year ago, and I brought the cheapest, lousiest bottle of scotch you can imagine, which I'm still very embarrassed about.
Which I probably still have sitting in the
Oh my God!
You haven't poured it out yet?
Well, no. If I remember right, you're using it to like pour other crap in, because God, I was so embarrassed at that.
Wasn't it like McCracken or something?
I don't know what it was, but it came in a mason jug.
It was awesome.
It was a friggin' mason jar. I didn't know.
Honestly, it was so bad that it became a topic. I mean,
well,
every party, somebody have to try the McCracken.
You were so nice. I mean, because I didn't know anything about single malt whiskeys. I mean, now I would have a much better idea what to get. But at the time, I knew nothing, and I'm going to Total Wine, and there's absolutely nobody there to help me. Keith is on a business trip, and I can't reach him to say, what will be a good scotch, because I know that he would know. So I went for what I thought would look like the best value, and it was this thing that was like $27 in a mason jar.
It was $27 for 4 gallons.
And you were so nice, Mike. I have to commend you because you took one sip and said, that's smooth.
Ooh, that's smooth.
I'll never forget that. I thought, oh God, he hates it. I was so terribly embarrassed. But then
never insult bearers of alcohol.
I know,
bad.
Yeah. But then I emailed you a year later and said, I don't know if you remember me. I brought the really lousy scotch and you, oh yeah, I remember you. And I said, well, I was thinking about maybe coming back up for another time. Oh sure, come on in, and then I remember at the end of that evening, as I was getting ready to go, you simply said, come back anytime. And I thought, well, okay, let me give this about 4 weeks, and then I'll think about it. I didn't say that out loud, but I was thinking, I just don't want to, just keep inviting myself, because to me that felt really intrusive. But then after like 2 or 3 times of that, I remember what it was. It was then you guys are doing your episode 300. And you had all these, I mean, it was this massive reunion. And I remember you were getting ready to do a complete remodel of the studio. And
that's right, because that's when we were starting to really dive into video seriously.
Right.
And trying to move it to the video podcast, yeah.
Right. So you were going to completely shut down the studio for about like 3 months or something. And but you had this big anniversary being that was episode 300. I mean, the studio was just packed with people. I wasn't there. I was just listening to it. And then towards the very end, throughout the entire episode, talking about people who've been on the show, the history of Slice, how it came from Winging It and all of that. And then finally, you're talking about people who've been recent contributors. And Brian was speaking, and then he mentioned my name. And he said, I wouldn't mind having him back on again. And I thought, okay, that now I can do this. So that's when I started showing up on a more regular basis. But I tell you, it forever altered my life in ways I never considered imaginable, and it still does.
Yeah,
it still does. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like I said, I started this whole journey thinking I was going to sell a couple books, and I ended up 14 freaking years later, after I finally shut it all down, going, holy crap, what a journey.
Yeah. And
where the places that I've been and the things that I've done that I would have never dreamed of doing if it wouldn't have been for this.
Okay. And
so it's been a very positive thing.
Right. And after he had been going for a while and I was in town, I went up there just to watch.
You just wanted to watch,
and then
and then it was suggested that maybe you could sit behind a mic one time or work cameras or whatever, and then it just kind of wow.
Yeah, I don't let anybody sit in the background. If you're there, you're there.
Right, and it was like a runaway horse at that point.
Yeah, and it was a great experience. I mean, I learned a lot. I that's why our show is somewhat scripted, as we took that from the Slice days. We have this segment, and we have this segment, and we have this, and we do that, and do the other thing, and the way we do interviews, and and whatnot like
Yeah,
that.
I think that's
So,
actually one of the. I understand loose formats, but there's got to be some structure.
right.
No matter how, you've got to have some structure, and reoccurring segments are critical.
Yeah.
If a segment's not working, then dump it. But if you're going to have a segment,
Right.
because it gives the listeners a place to go.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want to listen to what you're presenting at the time, at least they know that there's other things coming later in the show that they can skip to.
Yeah, we've had that
Give
too.
them a place to go besides just shutting you off and leaving.
Right. I mean, there was some feedback. In fact, Keith, I think it was from your sister.
Yeah.
Lynch, I mean, she went to a different part of the episode because that's what she wanted to hear.
Right.
She didn't care to hear this one segment. There was this other point. So yeah, having that kind of structure really can. I think it's a great idea. So yeah, I'm with Keith. I mean, I think what the time at Slice really benefited us a lot, and at the same time, we've managed to become our own thing.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, exactly.
And,
I mean, over the years, I can definitely sit back and know that the shows that we did launched thousands of shows, and literally thousands of shows, because there are so many people that started after being a part of, contributing to, listening to, being a fan of. The voicemail segments became its own entity, because I know a lot of people that listen to the voicemail shows and never listen to the main show because they just like the interaction, the live interaction with the listeners and the people.
Yeah, I love that.
The content that was inside of it wasn't just dry, boring, oh, let's listen to somebody, give us a comment and then we'll play the next one. There was so much content that was created inside of the voicemails from the voicemails.
Oh,
Right.
God.
I mean, they created their own content.
Fox
and they
Leader.
created their own memes.
Fox Leader.
became his own entire meme. Sean from Edward.
Sean from Edwards.
No. He started out as a voicemail contributor and ended up with a segment on the main show because he was doing it consistently and doing it very well.
Yeah.
And there's like Wild Snarlax.
Yeah.
I mean, things like that.
And,
I mean, it was these were things that I looked forward to listening to because you knew, and I mean, they became almost like characters on the show. So that,
Enormous
of course
Enormous from Australia, who started on Winging It, who is now on Shark Tank in Australia as himself, Stephen Baxter.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I mean, he's on television in Australia doing a show now because of starting with us.
Wow.
And
that's why we have
it's amazing.
That's why we have a Skype line. Because for people, and we've had a few comments and not video messages, but
we've had some audio feedback from here and there.
It's worth having,
Video was the hardest.
Yeah.
That was wow. That was technologically challenging. That was show challenging, format challenging. I mean, everything about that was challenging.
It was audience
we still
challenging
had to maintain. Well, we still had to maintain for the radio because we had to maintain for XM. We still had to maintain for podcasting, but doing that video element was starting to bring its own people. However, if we were doing just a video podcast, I would have done it completely different than the way that we were doing it, because it should have been tailored for video instead of we're still locked into having to do for audio and then having the video component added to it. I mean, I think we did a good balance. I think what we ended up with, it worked actually really well
for the most part.
I see that format still out there. I mean, Chuck's still doing it on Technorama. He's still doing the same format that we were doing, and I've seen many others that are doing that format, and it works well.
Right.
It has But if I would I think there would have been a better way to do that if it were just the video.
Right.
Now,
I don't know.
Sorry,
I'm getting off on a tangent.
That's okay. Now, I seem to remember there was an attempt by you and I think Brian Brown, I'm not sure, to actually do a video news segment of sorts, but it didn't last very long. How did that come about, and why did that evaporate?
That was our first toe dipping into the video content and creating a more newsroom setting. The problem with it was that we lost all the organic fun that we had on the shows. The organic conversations and the witty banter back and forth, and everybody commenting on everybody else's comments to make comments about the comments of the comments of the comments.
Right.
And then we get into this freaking, endless loop of meme. All of that disappeared because we were more static. We were on teleprompters. We were running script, and it just got cardboard.
Yeah.
And we did a few episodes of that, and by the end of that few episodes, we realized this is definitely not our formula.
Right.
So, but it also got some of the technology started. That's where I finally figured out that the webcams could actually do the job, even though at a lower bandwidth, because the computing power hadn't caught up to where we needed to be. Now, with the Mac Pros and so forth out there, you can do, full high definition HD, 1080p video and stream that in through 6 or 7 high definition web cameras and look as good as a studio. But back then, no, you couldn't do that. I mean, we had 3 dedicated computers just to run it. We had one just for audio, and then 2 systems just for video, just to create the video content.
It's amazing.
And then syncing that across all of it and through the digital mixer boards. You can get me into the tech of it, but it was painful. It was painful to get that up, working, and organized the first times. And crashes, crashing all the time, crashing.
Oh my gosh!
Because it's just too much data to try and push over that bus at one time. I mean, we had eight static cameras running simultaneously into that program.
Wow!
I mean, which it's only supposed to support 2.
Right.
We were pushing it 4 times its capacity or its limit, and every time I call them for tech support, it's like, you can't do that. Well, we're doing it. Every time it was every question came back with the same statement: you can't do that with this system. It's not possible. It is possible because we're doing it. Now tell me how I can make this work.
Right. Well, that's why I've kind of resisted any video, because number one, the editing would be a nightmare, because we have a certain amount of editing that we have to do, just from dead air space and switching different things. But that, as well as the computing power that it would require, as well as trying to get some kind of backdrop.
Don't get me wrong.
us.
Don't let me scare you off. That was because of the time,
right?
And that it was so new. Now it's so much easier. It is so much easier to do video. In fact, I would say that it's probably as easy to do video now as it is just to do audio.
Really?
Because the equipment's there. It's like the beginnings of podcasting, when there was no such thing as equipment for podcasting, and now there's tons of it. It's the same with a video. With the YouTube channels and the people who are doing streaming content, video streaming content. I mean, there is so much more equipment out there. The computing power is there. The bus speeds are there. The cameras are better. They're there. You don't have to do thousands and thousands of dollars of commercial HD cameras anymore. You can get away with HD web cameras using USB 3, or there's so much out there that you can do really, really good video podcasting with equipment, over the counter consumer equipment.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, this has been a really fascinating discussion, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah.
I mean, you really kind of,
no
as
problem.
I said, you're the godfather of podcasting. You're kind of you birthed this podcast, and we wanted to do something special for episode number 150, and we really appreciate you giving us birth and also being on the show today.
Well, I appreciate you guys out there. I mean, I really like what you guys do. I think you serve a community that is so underserved, and it's just amazing, and I'm so proud to have been a part of getting you guys going, because what you do is so awesome, and I applaud everything that you're doing here.
Well, thank you.
Amazing.
Coming from you, that means a lot.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I sincerely, deepest sincerity there. I really, really do believe that your show is one of my most proud that has come.
Wow.
That has
You're going to make me
originated.
cry, Mike. Stop.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, no problem.
And
Awesome to be here, guys. This is Michael R. Mennenga of Slice of Sci-Fi, Winging It, and Dragon Page. You are listening to the Two Gay Geeks.
And here's a bunch of selected birthdays. I won't say a few because there was a bunch in the first part of January. January 1st through January 7th, 2018. January 1st, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley.
Wow.
Xavier Cugat, who was the husband of Charo.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
Kat Cora, Antonin Dvorak, Nicholas Copernicus, Jack Daniel, John Muir, the famed California naturalist, Chuck Taylor, Louis Armstrong, E.M. Forster, who wrote the wonderful novel and that was made into a movie, Morris. It's just a wonderful thing. January 2nd, Mr. Barry Goldwater, a Phoenix native. I remember Goldwater's department store.
I do too.
They were closing right as I moved here, but we had a Goldwater's in Albuquerque where I lived. Also on January 2nd, Isaac Asimov and Jack Hanna, the zookeeper that Johnny Carson was always got the animals crawling all over him.
Yeah.
Yes. January 3rd, Sergio Leone, who is Italian director of a lot of the spaghetti westerns.
Right.
George Martin, not George R.R. Martin.
No, we're talking George Martin, the producer.
Sir George Martin.
Sir George Martin,
Yes.
who did the Beatles albums.
Yes. Also on January 3rd, Victor Borge and J.R.R. Tolkien.
There's your RR.
There's our R.R. January 4th, Sterling Holloway.
But most people may not remember, but he actually was the original voice for Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh, among other things. He was a Cheshire Cat as well.
That's right.
Also on January 4th, Grace Bumbry, famed opera singer, lady of color, and she was a fabulous opera singer. Dot Jones
Of Glee.
Isaac Newton, Louis Braille, who invented the Braille system of reading.
Oh, okay. I thought he was named after it.
Yeah, and James Bond, born in 1900. He said he was an ornithologist. And he died in 89.
So his code number is 0019?
Yes, but he died in 89, so that must explain why none of the movies after 89 were any good.
Hey, I think you're onto something there. Don't tell Eugene that.
Yeah. January 4th, friend of the show, Julia Camera. Sorry, Julia. Julia Camera. She was the writer
for Occupants.
Occupants, yes. January 5th, Miss Jane Wyman, Hayao Miyazaki, George Reeves, Alfred Brendel, famed pianist, Zebulon Pike, born in 1779. He was the one that discovered Pike's Peak. Terry Ross, friend of ours at Disney California Adventure. She's a manager at the Carthay Circle restaurant, yes. And Ms. Canberra Potter, who is our favorite
Everybody's
fembot.
fembot.
Yeah. January 6th, Sid Barrett.
Oh, we just saw a special on Pink Floyd the other night.
Yeah. Eddie Redmayne, Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean, Loretta Young and her pearls, and Terry L. Smith, the writer-author that we
just interviewed a few weeks back.
Yeah. January 7th, Mr. Robert Sheehan.
Wow, lots of birthdays.
Yeah, who was, he starred in Song of Sway Lake, among other things.
Yes.
Yeah. And Nicolas Cage, Max Raymelt, who was in...
he's in Sense8.
Sense8, yep. Francis Poulenc, and Hamish Downey, good friend of the show, and happy birthday, Hamish. And good friend of ours, Millie Delaquila.
Mildred.
Yes, Mildred. Happy birthday! And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad?
Not me.
That's for sure. How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends Chuck and Craig over at Technorama. Rama. Technorama. And now it's not time for our... No, we're not going to do that.
Nope, not
Let me
doing
scratch that.
Yep.
We're gathering our feedback for our feedback-a-palooza in January, later on.
Yes.
And we want to hear from you. Please comment on this episode, on anything you want to, on our articles. You can do that at tggeeks.com at the bottom of each article or episode. You can also comment on our Facebook page or at Twitter, or you can call us at our listener line and we'll play it on air. 469-TG-Geeks. That is 469-844-3357. And always, please play nice.
This is Mark Biaggi, and you're listening to TG Geeks Webcast. Get your geek on.
Scratch that too.
Yeah. I do want to comment one thing on something that Mike had mentioned. You know, he was talking about some of the many of the podcasts that got birthed, and for him to show such love for us.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks, Mike.
I mean, yeah,
really
Mike.
It.
I mean, not only is he, so has he done so much for the podcast community in terms of what he's done now, and but he's a really awesome guy.
Yeah, we like Mike a lot, and of course we like everything that Mike does. His trains.
Yeah, we like his trains. We haven't seen his aquarium setup yet. I've never seen photos on Facebook, but that's all. I haven't seen
his cat.
Oh,
Gemma.
We love Gemma. And we love Lori.
And of course, Lori. Yes. And as always, we have our follow-up items. Check out our calendar. If you have something that you feel should be on there, send us a note. We'll put it on the calendar. Then we'll announce it in the appropriate episode. And Phoenix Comic-Con returns to the Convention Center May 24th through the 27th in 2018. It is 2018 now. Arizona Opera presents Candide, Leonard Bernstein's.
I swear for a second you're going to say Leontine Bernstein.
Leontine. No, Leonard Bernstein's.
That makes Glitter and Be Gay gives a whole new meaning.
A whole completely different meaning. Leonard Bernstein's opera featuring the famed Glitter and Be Gay. And this production is part of the worldwide celebration of Bernstein's 100th anniversary. Arizona Opera presents it in Tucson, January 27th and 28th, and in Phoenix, February 2nd through the 4th. Tickets are still available with good seats at azopera.org. Check out the third edition of Podcasting for Dummies, written by T. Morris and Chuck Tomasi. Go to podcastingfordummies.com. Want to give a shout out to GoDaddy as always. Thank you for being our hosting provider and better than what we had before. Much, much better. Thank you. Thank you. And as everybody knows, we are huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or anything else. There's a lot of talent out there that doesn't get a lot of money. And so if you see somebody raising money for a project or crowdfunding for a project, please consider supporting them. You never know, you might be part of something big and you could say you helped. Please consider supporting independent creators.
Special shout out to Doctor Who Talking Who on Twitter. They published the Doctor Who Fancast Guide that republishes many of our stories. You can find them by going to Twitter and searching at Talking Who. Also, there is another publication called the Arkle Times Post Dispatch News that republishes much of our own content as well. That is put out by the Human Arkle. You might know him better as Brian Weber. You can find him on Twitter at Arkle. And he also has on Tumblr the Incorrect Star Trek Voyager quotes. Check it out. It's great for a laugh here and there, but just make sure not to be caught while you're doing it at work. Why are you doing it at work? Shame on you.
And check out Looky Show on YouTube. They have a very unique way and wonderful reviews of old movies and television programs. So check out Looky Show on YouTube.
And as always, a most heartfelt thanks to moderator Jeremiah Rees. Moderator? What does he moderate? He moderates a Facebook group called The Gay Geek. And we thank you because he said you can go ahead and share your content among all this wonderful gay geeky goodness. And the URL is facebook.com/groups/thegaygeek.
And we want to remind you to occasionally click on our Amazon ads. You can find those at the bottom of each webcast article and the bottom of each article that we publish, as well as the widgets on the side for people that we like and we want to push their wares. So give it a try. Click on one of the Amazon ads. If you want to buy something from Amazon, use one of our search ads. It doesn't cost you anything, and we might get a little bit of a kickback. And last, check us out on iHeartRadio, on Spreaker, on SoundCloud, and on Stitcher. Also, review us on iTunes and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as go ahead and give us a listen over there. We'll be adding a few new things, and we already have some movie trailers, etc. A couple of other things that we're trying to build some content over on YouTube. So that's it. Wrong sound. That was the final sound. This is the next time.
Can you tell we desperately need a vacation?
Yes. Next time, Mr. Technorama, Chuck Tomasi. We're going to talk with Chuck about the current state of podcasting and how he got his start in podcasting. So check it out next week, episode 151. We thought it was appropriate after talking to Mike.
Oh, yeah, and, to do a chat with Chuck.
Yeah.
A chat with Chuck. Gee, I didn't mean to say it that way, but bum.
Mixing metaphors, mixing sounds there. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have a couple of links on the page. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website at tggeeks.com. You can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357 from TG Squared Studios in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. I bid you peace.
Cheers.